our response to the storm reflects our faith. I totally stole this from Jennifer, I'm not even going to lie. The storms in our lives are a diagnostic tool for our faith, period. Because it was that good. She needs credit for that. 1 Peter 1:7 says this, the trials show that our faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, that your faith is more precious than gold. How do we react when the bad news comes? When the fear starts to rise inside our soul, when the pressure begins to really just mash on you, when the wind starts to whip up waves in our lives, when the doctor calls and says, I got bad news, what do you do? I have a friend, many years ago was diagnosed with cancer. And it wasn't just any cancer, it was a life-threatening cancer. They gave him a 5 to 10% chance of survival. Look, I would bet the other direction, right? I mean, that's bad. And he told me this story. He said, Justin, I remember as I just got the diagnosis, I was wrestling with this because he was a dad and he was a husband and he had this family and he loved them. And he said, I was so just encompassed by fear, I just crashed and I let it all at his feet. And I was like, God, I got nothing. And he melted down with fear in that moment. Because what happens to my kids? What's going to happen to my wife? What's going to happen to the people that I love and that I care about when I'm gone? Because his kids were young. They were little. They weren't grown. And in that space, Jesus met him. And the most remarkable thing about this story, and the reason why I tell you is because he got up from that moment and he said, I'm going to choose joy. And I'm going to choose to trust no matter what happens. I never saw him flinch. Not once. I saw him feel crummy because chemo does that to you. But I never saw him flinch. I never saw him waver in his faith that God was with him in the midst of the storm. Probably the worst storm of his life. I never saw him go, I can't do it. Throw up his hands and quit. What he did instead was he called something out of me. Justin, what is God calling you to? And I shared with him, he says, man, you need to take the craziest risk of your life and quit your job and go do this thing. And I went, you are on drugs, man. You need to just say no, but it's chemo, so say yes and do that. Look, my friend understood something. And what I loved about it is his response in that storm was an example for me. See, I look to that and I go, when storms come in my life, in that moment when he called that out of me, I went, who am I to say no to him about that? Like, I don't have anything remotely comparable to that. It's just a job. This is a calling. Which leads me to this is, Jesus cares too much for you and I to protect us from the storm. He loves you too much. That storm in his life was a refining fire that didn't just change him, it changed me. I would not be here if it wasn't for my friend and his calling that out of me. Because you know what? I needed him, but he also needed that storm to call it out of me. I don't think we would be here without it. 2 Corinthians 4:17 says this, and I love this verse, and I pray that it's my perspective, but man, is it rarely ever. It says this, for this light, momentary affliction is preparing us for the eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. This light and momentary affliction, it is this much in the weight of eternity and eternity and eternity. This is just a hiccup. It's a speed bump. Eternity is forever, and the weight of glory. I just, again, my mind goes, I have no idea what to do with that.